I'm R.W.R. McDonald and I'm an author. So my most recent book is Nancy Business, and this will be coming out 1st of June this year. So it is a sequel to The Nancys, which came out June 2019. So a little bit about the Nancys. They are an amateur detective trio made up of Tippy Chan, who's an 11-year-old with a love of Nancy Drew, her Uncle Pike, and his boyfriend Devon. So it's set in small town New Zealand in South Otago in a fictitious town called Riverstone. And Uncle Pike and Devon are there to babysit Tippy. So when her school teacher is murdered, this is Tippy's chance to solve a real life mystery. So Nancy Business then takes place 4 months after the Nancys finish, and it starts at the memorial of Tippy's father's death. And an explosion that night rocks Riverstone, destroys the town hall, and the Nancys reform. So the Nancys came from a play on Nancy Drew. So Tippy inherits Uncle Pike's Nancy Drew books, which he loved as a child, so they have that sort of common language. And then also a play on that, which used to be a slur in the gay community, Nancy, so it's a reclamation of that and a play on that. It's comedy, but it's also dealing with grief. So there's light and darkness. So part of the babysitters deciding it's a good idea to investigate a murder with an 11-year-old is to help Tippy process the grief of her father passing away, which happened 9 months before the Nancys starts. It's certainly not something I would recommend you do with an 11-year-old as a bonding activity, but their intentions are good. So there is some dark moments, and yeah, that's offset with a lot of light. So some hopefully heartwarming and laughs, as well as perhaps the odd tear. It's very happily made its way into the crime fiction family, and I'm really very happy about that. It's wonderful writers and community that have embraced it. Last year, the Nancys won the Ngaio Marsh Award for Best First Novel, which, that was absolute dream. I love amateur detectives because they have to try that little bit harder or go outside the norms to try and get information and try and solve these mysteries. So the same with the plot in the second one. There is that underlying murder mystery plot and puzzle, but I feel within that, and this is I think the great thing about crime fiction and the crime fiction genre is you can go anywhere within that. So, you hear about literary crime fiction and people exploring all kinds of societal issues within that. And so that's the same with the Nancys. You can make it a family story. You can make it a story about grief. You can make it a story about acceptance, all these other things, while, having that skeleton. And the other thing I love about it is with the Nancys and Nancy Business is, I'm writing an analogy for the queer experience, which is you have a truth which is different from what the public or the majority experience. And so we have that both in the Nancys, where the Nancys are the only ones who believe the police are wrong. Well, actually, in both cases. So it was being able to play with that in this genre. Whew, that's a good question. I remember my first ever story I wrote, which was when I was at school, and it was, what did you do in the school holidays? And I grew up on a farm, and we hadn't been anywhere. We were just helping Dad out on the farm. And I decided to say that we went to the beach and I got bitten by a crab. And then when I got the story back, there was like a star and a tick and very good. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is cool. So I kind of got the writing bug then, and I always have written. It wasn't until 2016 when I went and did writing a novel with Faber Academy that I really prioritised my writing. Up until then, I'd never shared my writing with anyone. I had just written for myself. It had been short stories. The furthest I'd got was writing, say, first draft of a novella, which again was a crime story, set in the same province. So it's almost like it was a precursor for the Nancys. And then I had done some script writing, again for myself, but had done 2 drafts of script. One was a horror and one was a knight who fell in love with a Viking sort of fantasy quest, as you do. And but the thing that screenwriting, I think, learning that was really good for dialogue, for subtext, for structure. So then by the time I came to Faber Academy, I sort of had that under my belt. But yeah, I was so incredibly lucky to have Paddy O'Reilly and Tony Jordan as my tutors. Yeah, and my class, we're still in touch with each other. We still help each other workshop, and so it was brilliant. I just, can't recommend it enough. I am at the moment, yes. Yeah, I'm very lucky. I will have to look for some supplementary income post-Easter, but certainly the pendulum has swung. When I started in 2016 and all the way up until last year, I was working full-time and moving my writing, public transport, lunchtime, after work, weekends when I didn't have my children. So now, it's the pendulum swung the other way. So I still, having maybe 2 days outside of writing work. But yeah, very incredibly grateful. And it's, you fill your day up very easily as a writer. One of the amazing things in 2020, and I will talk about, some positive things that happened, it was always on the back of these awful things. So we had the fires in Australia, and then we had this incredible community event led by Emily Gow and Nova Wheatman, the authors for Fireys, where the community really came together. I'm getting chills even, thinking about it. It was just an incredible time, and I feel like we still, as a writing and reading community, still are, we still have the benefit of that. I think it really did make us a lot closer, and we got to know a lot of different people that we might not have got to know as well. And then, of course, with the pandemic, for me, the first probably 6 weeks, I couldn't write. I just found it so hard. There was so much news going on. There was schooling from home. There was all of these personal and family things that were happening. And then, I don't know, and also then during that time, I was lucky to sell Nancy Business, because that was on submission, which also doesn't help when I'm trying to write, because you just refreshing the email and oh my god, what am I going to do? I've just spent all this, months on this. So then after that though, then I sort of got back into the groove of writing, which was great because for me it provides escape. I don't know if escape's the right word, but it does occupy a good chunk of my brain that would otherwise be trying to worry about something or, something around anxiety, whereas I feel when I'm writing, a lot of that time's taken up trying to solve the writing puzzles. There were so many good books, and this was the other thing about 2020. So I was living in the West, so some bookshop was my local. They quickly pivoted and were like doing daily deliveries, and it was that thing where I feel like the public were buying more books and supporting because we couldn't get to the real life events. So 2020, Sam Coley's State Highway 1, I loved that. Anna Whately's Peter Lyer's Rating Normal, through to Susan Francis, The Love That Remains, Ashley Clayton-Blunt, How to Be Australian, and then all the crime books that came out. So in the Clarion, J.P. Panari, Anna Downs, The Safe Place, Petronella McGovern, The Good Teacher, and then you had books like Kokomo, The Octopus and I. When you look back on it, it was actually a pretty incredible year for Australian authors. Coming from New Zealand, Margaret Mahy was very big. She was big in our schools, big in our libraries, and for good reason. Her The Lion in the Meadow is still one of my absolute favourites, particularly the edition she had, which was illustrated by Jenny Williams, and they did a lot of collaborations together. Even looking at it now, the artwork is phenomenal, and the story about this boy who's trying to tell his mum that there's a lion in the meadow, and she just is, she's going, go play, and there is actually a lion there. So I love that, and other Margaret Mahy books like Rooms for Rent. And then there was The Lucky Bunny and What Good Luck, What Bad Luck. I was a voracious reader as a child, but I still have absolute fondness for that book in particular. And like any, I think, parents with children, you want your kids to really love it, and being kids, they're just like, nah. So I still hold out. I actually say to them, why don't you love my book? But no, they're not. So we have Nancy Business coming out 1st of June. Currently, I'm working on a 3rd book. So I don't want to give anything away, particularly because of how Nancy Business ends. What? But yes, working on another book, and we'll keep working within the crime genre, at least for the foreseeable. I've got a few more ideas that I'd really like to explore. So yes, I will be still here, still around, and looking forward to I guess seeing Nancy Business out in the world, and just for those readers who love the Nancys, hopefully this will be a deeper dive, and for those who haven't read the Nancys, it's still a standalone, so they can read it. If 2 books is too much, which sometimes you could look at a trilogy and go, oh, I don't know. Can I commit? Thank you so much, Leaf Bookshop. I've loved it.